This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Fan.
He's on with Dan Barreiro right now.
Brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Johnny, how are you?
I'm doing great. Game 4.
Good to have you back from the Target Center Cage location as we get ever closer to the tip-off sometime between 7:30 and 7:40. Where should we begin today? Well, I'll give you a chance to go X's and O's on the bit. To impress, so you can impress our audience about just how deep you can go
Ball guy.
in that regard. The SGA question. Was there something strategic we did that was a significant departure from previous games? Was it simply greater force and effort? What do you say?
I mean, definitely a combination of things. One is that the whistle was a little looser, but I think the most significant strategic approach that was different, was that Jaden McDaniels did not pick SGA up as high coming over half court as he had in games 1 and 2. When he was out there in 1 and 2, well above the 3-point line, it allowed Oklahoma City to set the screen much higher, and that gave Shea more of a runway to get downhill, get ahead of steam up, build up all the momentum that he need to really get the Wolves off their heels. In game 3, Jaden McDaniels was planted right firmly at the 3-point line.
Yes.
That made them set the screen lower. That allowed them to pack in the paint a little bit more and give more help. And it looked like it was fairly effective in just not allowing Shea to be as comfortable and have as much space to work with in the Wolves against the Wolves defense.
I would say it worked almost no matter who had the ball. Like you said, it felt like there was more of an effort, a lot less dropping going on, and a lot more. We're gonna basically blitz out, take our chances on maybe some backdoor stuff, and it's just as you say, it's a matter of dropping the players closer to the 3-point line. But once there, it felt much more clogged.
Yeah.
The inability to turn. The inability to get to this, it's certainly not as often, the spaces that Oklahoma City in their mid-range game loves to get to.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that they also kind of took a page out of Oklahoma City's book in that they seem to be willing to roll the dice that we are going to leave the corner 3-pointer open. And so if Shea gets downhill, our guy is coming in to help there and attack, and they're counting on Isaiah Joe or Jalen Williams or a lot of these guys missing corner threes. And it's a fairly worthwhile gamble because the Thunder shot great from 3 in the regular season. In the playoffs, the totality of the playoffs, 32%. So until I think OKC starts to really light up from that area, you're going to see the Wolves continue to dare them to make those shots. They did not do it in Game 3. The Wolves did make theirs finally, and that's why you saw just a runaway.
When in Game 3 did you feel like, okay, there's something, they've figured something out here, at least for the purposes of this game, they're in good shape? Was it a few defensive stands? Was it a couple offensive plays? Where did you start saying, all right, this is different tonight?
Yeah, it was two things. First, in the first quarter, it was Ant defensively. We know we outscored the Thunder 16-14. That's great. Awesome. But when he is locked in and not getting beat backdoor and getting into guys on the perimeter like he can, but like that requires a lot of energy, it changes everything that the Wolves do defensively. But I really thought, and it wasn't until Terrence Shannon came in the second quarter, because we've seen them build big leads. We've seen Oklahoma City come back from big deficits. But when Shannon came in and just went right down their throats and got a 20-point lead to 26, now you're saying, okay, this is a team that is not letting off. This is a team that has something else to throw at them so they can avoid the big drought. And so I just thought that the energy and the toughness that he provided was just essential to what they were doing in that.
So 20 became 30, because I think 34-14 at the quarter. Yep. Shannon comes in, and we kind of go from there. So the assumption is you have to play Shannon again.
Yes.
Today. We can expect that, I assume. Who do those minutes? Who loses minutes? How do we work that?
I think it's going to be reading the game. So. Right. It could be Dante DiVincenzo. It could be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. It could be Rudy Gobert if he's not effective early on. It could be someone like that. But I think right now, the priority for Finch in minutes allotment, it's Ant and Jaden McDaniels have to be out there as much as humanly possible. And then I do think that Shannon and Julius Randle are like the next pair of guys, because they both bring of physicality that you need. And I thought that Game 3 was the first one where the Wolves looked like the bullies. And that's what they have to be in this series. They have to dictate all of the aggression to Oklahoma City and beat them and kind of bang them. And that was the first time they were doing it in Game 3. So
assess Rudy's play, where he fits into this thing, and does he have to continue to be part of what makes this work?
I mean, they're just so much different defensively when he's effective. I thought that, he didn't have a huge offensive game. He didn't have 20 rebounds, but I thought he was a presence in Game 3 that he wasn't in 1 and 2. And I'm still really concerned about what I see from him offensively, just in terms of being involved in the play, other than setting screens. I just think it's been really, really shaky. But he is so important to deterrence at the rim defensively and getting rebounds and limiting second chance points, that I just think that they have to find a way, and he needs to be out there and effective. If Oklahoma City is successful in getting him off the floor and going Reed Randall, you can still have success that way, but it's a lot harder to just get into a scoring kind of up and down with them. They want Rudy out there just really locking that paint down.
Okay, so if this is chess and the Wolves made a couple of master moves that at least created a check situation, if not a checkmate situation, what are the counter moves one can expect? Is it strategic, or is it simply, again, force about an effort from Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that one of the things in following these playoffs, and for as long as I have, you cannot manufacture desperation. And so the Wolves were the desperate team in Game 3. The Thunder, I do think, did not play with the same force. Like, they had 2 comfortable victories, and I wonder if they just thought, this is going to be easy. And so I would expect them to be just much more aggressive defensively on the perimeter in creating turnovers and getting after. And then I think Shea is going to just be much more aggressive as well. He really did back away from things as the game got out of hand. And so I do think it's one of those, what's your adjustment play better? And they are fully capable of just doing so much more. And I think that this will be kind of a really telltale game tonight is, have the Wolves really figured them out?
Exactly.
Or did they just catch the Thunder sleeping and just got on top of them and rolled with it?
So before the opening tap for Game 3, what did your gut tell you about what you expected? I guess what I'm asking is, how surprised were you that not only the Wolves were able to counter, but obviously counter with a 42-point win?
Yeah, I mean, I was very concerned, Dan. I seen the way that this team has responded all season when they've been backed up. I expected them to play better, but I did wonder, is this one of those bad matchups? Do they just not have it? And so, to see them play this way, but then to win by 40, of course, was not anything I saw coming. But I was always under the assumption that Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander would make shots. And I thought that a lot of games 1 and 2 were that they just were missing these really good looks, and that completely took the wind out of their sails defensively and contributed to that. So I thought if they could knock down a few early, they would be in good shape. I did not think they were going to win by 40 and really make everyone think twice about, hey, is this series really as lopsided as it had looked?
How hot was Randall after Game 2?
He was disappointed for sure. Yes, he's a prideful guy. He wants to be out there. He did, to his credit, take ownership and accountability for not playing well. We asked him about it, and he just, I have to play better. I can't turn the ball over like that. I have to make those shots. But he was definitely sideways after the game. To Finch's credit, to Randall's credit, they met the next day. They had a long talk, and I thought it was really impressive what Julius said after Game 3 of look, I trust this guy. I know he has my best interests at heart. He got me back to where I needed to be, and I knew that his decision was not in any way personal, but just the way that the game was going. So Chris Finch has done a good job with Randall, with Rudy Gobert, and with Mike Conley of when those guys are sat down in big moments of repairing whatever happens. But Randall was sideways in the moment. So
this is, I think, a good object lesson in contrasting, quote unquote, old school coaches and more new school coaches, I believe. And look, I'm a guy who tends to defend old school coaches, but I would say there shouldn't be anything dangerously too new school about, once you make a big move, which is you bench him for an entire quarter, still being willing to communicate whatever you think you have to convey, and to A, make the points, here's why I did what I did, and B, let's get to the other side here, because in the end, you don't want to lose the player. You can be excited about, hey, I was a tough guy and I did what I had to do, but if you lose your player long term, you don't win.
Right.
A coach, whether he's old school or new school, would win. To me, this is a good example of that kind of communication, because there's a lot of old school coaches say, well, he knows what he did. There's nothing for us to talk about. You just got to play better next time, son.
Right, and I think it really does go back to a decision like that, and the way that you implement it, and then the way you come back from it is made, or the success of it is made in week 1 of the season, and week 10 of the season. And so Finch has done a very good job, especially with Randall, of conveying to him, I believe in you. I have your back. I am going to do what I can to put you in the best position to succeed. But he has also done things with Rudy Gobert, with others, that have shown Randall, look, you're not the only one that is going to be beholden to these decisions. And the good thing for Finch in this case was, when Randall was benched, they played a lot better in the fourth quarter. They got it back within 10.
Yes,
and so
that group did.
He could point to and say, look, they were doing things that were not working earlier in the game. If he benches them and they get really blown out, then maybe it gets a little bit more difficult. But Finch has done a good job with most of his players, particularly Randall, through the course of the season, building those lines of communication, building that trust, and communicating with them that there are going to be times that you don't play, and I will always go back to you, but we have to win these games.
Does he, either privately or publicly with you guys, he being Finchy, does he articulate what goes into those decisions in terms of, the calculation of it? the potential risks of doing exactly what he did? Or is he a guy who he's thinking it through, obviously, but doesn't necessarily want to lay all that out publicly?
Now, he's pretty accessible that way, and I think it's good for him from a transparency standpoint, because the easiest thing for fans, for media to do when they don't understand a decision is, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. What the heck is going on? He usually is explaining it either publicly or privately to just lay out the logic. And so then you at least understand where he's coming from in those decisions, and you can process it. Maybe we agree with it, maybe we don't, but at least you say, okay, this wasn't some sort of knee-jerk reaction. I also do think that the calculus does change. You know, if he's looking in December about benching Julius Randle for Nas or whatever, he's really thinking politically, like, do I lose him? Like, what happens long term over this? Whereas now in the Western Conference Finals, down 0-2, we got to win the damn game, you know, and I think that kind of coaching to just results oriented is easier in these situations because every win is just so important.
I believe the Wolves cannot win the series tonight, obviously, but I believe they can lose it.
Yep.
I firmly believe they have to win tonight to literally to significantly open the door to them getting, perish the thought, to the NBA Finals. Where are you on that?
I feel so too. I think that in many ways, it doesn't guarantee it, but I think this could be the series tonight. Certainly both teams can come back from losses. Wolves could come back from 3-1. The Thunder could certainly, rebound after 2-2 and with 2 games at home and win it. But I think if the Wolves win and win with some pizzazz, all of a sudden that brings an entirely different tenor to this. And that puts a lot of young players in OKC who have not been in this position in the pressure cooker. And that's exactly where the Wolves want them to be. The Wolves internally themselves believe that they can do this, but they need the Thunder to believe it as well. And I don't think the Thunder believe that just yet. So a win tonight would be pretty significant.
There was a lot of reporting, your publication, I think it's The Athletic, indicating that Edwards was very unhappy with himself, despite the fact he played much better in Game 2 than Game 1, was really down on himself. So is this an example of a real story, or is this what we tend to hear after a rebound game? I always wonder about that, if we even would have heard about that, if the circumstances could be different. What do you give us some insight into what you were hearing regarding where Anthony Edwards' head was after Game 2?
That was my colleague Sam Amick who did the piece, and I'll tell you, I'll just open the curtain on that. He had heard that anecdote before the game started, so it was in the back of his mind, and he was mulling it over and possibly using it depending on what happened. And so this was not a revisionist history type of a thing or like creating a narrative. This was something real. And generally speaking, I would say with Anthony Edwards, most of that stuff is genuine and real. Like they don't try, his camp does not try to manufacture stuff. Ant is not one to do things for clout, for aura, whatever the kids call it these days. So, there are other players that I absolutely would wonder that about. But Ant in particular, and then with this case, I do know that, he was talking to coaches about knocking or a second team All NBA, and he's like, the way I'm playing, I don't deserve it at all. And I really do believe that's what he was thinking going into this game. And he believes that if he plays the way he is capable of playing, he can almost win this series on his own. And he just was not meeting his standard.
Is that so for tonight? I mean, obviously, I would assume the Wolves would love a repeat of what he did last game. But there's always the question of flow and what a superstar player needs to give in a given situation. So is it scoring big again tonight? Is it managing? What are the keys tonight to give the Wolves the best chance to get to even?
So my guess would be that Oklahoma City is going to be even more aggressive in trying to attack him and get the ball out of his hands and fluster him and all that. So that may make this at least
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Apologize for the technical difficulty. Johnny Athletic just may have he was in the middle
with
of
my hot
perhaps
cakes.
the best answer he's ever given us to one of my bloviating long-winded questions, and then unfortunately our system kind of rebooted on us. Guardsy says so. We're back from Target Center Skyway location where the doors will be opened up here probably another 35 minutes or so. Michael Grady's going to stop by to see us probably at about 6:15 this evening as well. I don't remember. Do you remember what the answer was? It was related to...
It was Marconi level
What was...
stuff.
Yeah, I don't even remember what the question was at that point.
Yeah, I can't even remember what we were talking about, but it was... I think it was just talking about... it was talking about basically... It is tonight
the Wolves realizing that they got to do it
and
tonight.
I do think they need... I do think they realize it, but they have to play that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they play better when they're hanging by a thread, and they still are hanging by a thread, and that's they can't look at we whipped them last time, and so this is going to be easy now. This is turn. No, they have to play like it's still 2-0, or it's going to be over before if they lose, and I think that's the stakes that they have to approach tonight with.
Do you have any theories as to why, if we broaden the discussion out to both series, well, really the playoffs in general, that we've had the number of comebacks from 20 points or more down? There's been a lot of discussion from the analytics people about how rare that generally is in the postseason and how often it has happened this year. Is it 3-point shooting?
Yeah.
Is it players relaxing more than they used to? What's that about?
It's, I think, a couple of things. One is obviously the 3-point shot is such a big part of it, and everyone on the floor can shoot it now. And so these leads can't be big enough when you're building them up. And so the other part of it is the pace of the game is so much faster now. There's just more possessions. And so, when a Tibbs, when a Finchie is playing his guys, with 3 minutes to go and you're up 20, they're validated in that because we have seen the Pacers, we have seen the Wolves, we've seen a lot of these teams do it where all it needs is 1 or 2 shots because it is human nature for guys to relax a little when you're up big, but then once the worm turns, it's really hard to just kind of snap back into it and do what you were doing. That's why I thought, quite honestly, one of the most impressive part of Game 3 was when Oklahoma City started the third quarter 11-2, and you're like, okay, here they come. And for the Wolves to be able to just settle things down and really get it back up to 30 points before the end of the third was I thought, the best thing they did all game.
We've seen also there have been some huge scoring discrepancies, like the 42 points. I think, did Denver lose by 40 or 35?
Yeah, I think so.
In that range?
Yep.
Okie City was down 29 to Memphis. They came back and I think they won that game. But that too interests me. So there's a part of me that says, well, if you're a truly great team, you can't at any point in the conference finals lose by 42. So do you buy that, or does that tell us that we really are in a year where there are not any real super teams? There's some damn good ones, but not some teams you go, oh my God, we're going to remember this team for the next 25 years.
I do think that's more of it, Dan. I did see a stat after the Game 3 where it said no team that has lost by 40 in the playoffs has gone on to win the championship.
Interesting.
And so I thought that was interesting, but I do think it is more indicative of the parity that is in the league right now. Even a 68-win Thunder team that has a historic point differential and all of these things, they are generally playing against competition that is not the same level, and so they're padding some of those stats, but they also have those flaws that if they all kind of conspire to show up in the same night, poor three-point shooting, turnovers, relaxing, lack of physicality, or then it can really get away from you really quickly. Same with the Wolves when they're not knocking down open shots. It just really can go the other way poorly. And so I think it's a product of all of these teams are good. None of them are truly great teams anymore, and they're all vulnerable in their own little ways.
I'll ask you the PTI Wilbon Kornheiser question I just saw a little while ago. Wolves are down 2-1, correct?
That's right.
The Knicks are down 2-1 in both cases.
Who won the trade?
That's for another day.
Okay.
Which of the two teams down 2-1 do you give a better chance to win their series?
I think it's the Timberwolves because the way I look at this series is I think that when the Timberwolves play really well and the Thunder play really well, I think the Timberwolves can win that game. The one edge I give the Thunder in this series is I think they are more reliable to have a really good game than the Timberwolves are. But
won 19 more games in the regular season. That's a big gap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just think talent-wise, from top to bottom, I like the Wolves just a little bit more in these games. And whereas the Knicks, I think, have a much shorter or smaller window to win these games. The Pacers are really, really good, and the Knicks have 5 guys that they rely on, and that's about it. I know they had Landry Shamet the other night and stuff, but basically it's if our 5 aren't working, it's hard to kind of pivot off of that. Whereas I think the Wolves just have a few different ways to go about winning these games. Towns
obviously had a terrific fourth quarter, saved the Knicks in the game that they had to win, and they're going to go down 3-0. Also, 20 points in the final quarter. As a guy who is kind of the unofficial Cat historian here, what did you make of what happened there, other than the fact that he was going to have a chance to touch the ball because Jalen Brunson was on the bench with 5 fouls?
I don't want to be too cute, but that's, I think, a lot of what happened. Certainly the Pacers relaxed a little bit with their lead in the fourth quarter, but it is such a different look for them when it's not Brunson, who's a great player, but dribble, ISO, hunt, and take a contested shot. Cat needs to be in the flow of an offense and then have the ball run through his hands. And what he was able to do in that fourth quarter is say, okay, Brunson's on the bench, this is my time. And he was able to be ultra aggressive. He's able to go at a front court with Indiana that is not talented enough to stay with him. And he was featured. He was the guy rather than playing off of the guy. And I just think that was a huge difference in the game. And, he went from, I think, 4 points through the first 3 quarters to 20 and 8 rebounds. I mean, he just took over the game.
Yeah, it is interesting because in New York, it's being viewed as, well, where's this guy been? And look, I think Cat can be his own worst enemy. He can disappear a little bit on his own sometimes. He can make some bad decisions that lead to foul trouble, etc. But there is no mystery here. Like you said, it's you have to be willing to occasionally call his number, even as good as Brunson is in the fourth quarter, because ultimately that's going to give. You got him allegedly for a reason, right? And he is a supreme scorer, but he's a big man, which means he can't initiate. The ball's got to get to him.
Yep, and it is hard for an offensive player to play off of Brunson that way.
Yeah,
to stand around and wait and watch, and then just be ready for some end of the shot clock grenade or whatever you're going to get off of it. So that's a challenge, not just for Cat, but for anyone. And so I just do think that clearly, Brunson is an amazing player, and he has had huge moments in these playoffs. Great. But it's just a different vibe for the number 2 scorer when you elevate and you're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for something to come your way.
Lastly, let's finish up with the Wolves, because I know you got to get downstairs here pretty soon to listen to Finchie. By the way, has anything ever important been gleaned day of game, in the pregame, or is it just, I know it's obligation and you got to be there, or is it okay, we're happy for you, but there's not much to get?
I was disappointed he didn't tell us that Shannon was going to come in the other night. He's not one for revealing a whole lot, but generally speaking, you can at least just get a read on how is he, where's he feel. He does have, he was asked a lot of questions before the game the other night. Have you lost confidence? Has this team lost confidence? And he was kind of defiant and stuff about that, and he was pretty ticked off, and that's a good little bit of color. But yeah, we're not gaining huge insight into what's going to happen, judging by what he shares with us.
All right, so what do we, it's difficult to expect realistically another 25-5 start after the getting down early in the very early stages of the game. So what are we looking for tonight from the Wolves?
Yeah, I think it's defensive intensity, but I really do think if they can get Nas and Dante and Nikhil, or even Ant, to a degree of just hitting outside shots early, it changes the way they carry themselves. When those things fall and they're not pressing, going early, everything just clicks into place a little bit better. So the best thing that they did, Nas didn't hit 8 threes, he hit 2, but he hit the first 2. Same with Dante, he was 2 for 2. You don't have to be 9 for 11, but you just have to cash in early to get the Thunder thinking about it and to get the Wolves thinking less about it, and so they can just play freer. So I think that's a big thing tonight.
I don't think there's any question, as you mentioned earlier, Shea is going to make the refs refs make calls tonight, which I don't want to get back into that debate, but once upon a time, people complimented players who forced the refs to make calls and could get to the free throw line. So do we know the crew tonight? Do we have any telltale clues on the basis of who's officiating this evening?
It's a really good veteran crew. It's Zach Zarba, James Williams, and Bill Kennedy. So I am sure they are fully aware of Shea and his reputation. From what I know, it's not a tight whistle. It's certainly, we've seen Mark Davis, who has prison rules, and that's not what we're going to expect tonight. But I don't think they're going to be as easily hoodwinked.
Swayed.
Let's say. Let's just say. But so when you're looking at crews that you want, I think you feel pretty good about what they bring in general. Now we'll see what happens tonight, but I'm pretty confident that it's a professional crew.
You thought we texted back and forth more than people know pregame, and that I think felt the crowd was tense, going to be tense. I thought they were good almost from the start, pretty much. So do you think on the basis of what happened in Game 3, there's going to be less tension tonight and more hope and expectation that they can follow it up with another victory? Yeah,
I think there will be more swagger, a little bit more belief, and so
because after the games 1 and 2, it was hard to have much
understandable
because those were not close losses.
Yep, they were very concerning, and so they were able to. I do expect them to be on their game tonight and just come in ready to roll, and they were outstanding. It was incredibly loud in there. And the Wolves have said it, we need that. They do feed off of that. And so they have a chance to make a difference tonight. I do expect it to be pretty electric in there right from the start.
Thank you. We'll see you downstairs.
Thanks, Sam.
Appreciate you. That is John Krasinski, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Don't forget, Michael Grady is going to join probably about 6:15 or so. And we're going to go probably a little late for that reason because of his availability. We always like having him on. I will say this, too. If I have any trepidation tonight, it has less to do with whether the Wolves can, follow up their performance of Game 3 here in Game 4. I just don't want to see anybody get hurt at halftime. I must not pay much attention over the years to the halftime shows because the ones I have paid attention to since I've been here during the playoffs, I worry that somebody's going to get hurt or die. I'm not kidding you. The acts of bravery for the sake of the performance that we saw, and I don't even know the names of the couple that performed at halftime of Game 3, but honestly, I couldn't stop watching because I was so fearful of any sort of industrial accident taking place. I think you agree with me on this.
I do. Well, we had the old guy that we talked about that was game 5,
That was
right?
correct.
Of the Warriors series. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, would have been of the Warriors series.
Yeah, it was the previous series.
Who basically stacks chairs on top
and then
of each
just
other.
keeps going up.
And keeps going up. I'm trying to find, because I know our guy Munich always tweets out who the halftime show is, who it was for game 3, because it was like a couple.
Yes.
And she was basically just on, like, what would we even say that it is? Like, basically like a pole.
Yes, an extended pole, and then he's balancing it for part of the show on his forehead.
Right, not holding on to it.
Not even holding on to it. Now, eventually he did hold on to it, but for much of it, and she just keeps climbing and, doing somersaults, and I'm going, where are the mats? There's got to be some mats down here. But obviously they're professional. They know what they're doing. But I was riveted by this halftime show. And I actually got, if there's anytime I got annoyed with the fans, it was at halftime. Because I didn't think they were giving them enough of an ovation.
Right.
It was almost like, we're happy for it. It's halftime. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. We're going to talk to my friends. And I'm going, are you watching this in front of you?
They're not watching it, no.
This is pretty impressive stuff. They're doing it for us.
So they're called Perch. John and Angela are the founders of Rose City Circus. Okay. John was a college athlete with a love and passion for theater and dance.
Yeah.
After college, he saw a local circus and immediately auditioned, joined an acrobatics troupe. Angela specializes in chair stacking, hand balancing, duo acrobatics, and group acrobatics.
I believe
she's been touring and performing for several years.
So they're not local, are they? I don't think. Yeah, okay.
I don't think so. Perch.
I mean, I want to applaud him right now. Even do we know we have at halftime tonight? Is it also death-defying?
I don't know. You know who also I thought set a good tone was the anthem singer. Were you here for the anthem? Monique Blakely.
Outstanding.
She
really nicely done.
Crushed it.
Is she local?
I don't know. However, the crowd was feeling before
she
that.
She definitely added some life to the crowd.
She added some juice. Yeah. It was pretty impressive.
Very well done.
Who are the halftime? Okay, Munich.
You and I talked about this. I worry about Crunch.
I know.
They got him rappelling up all the way to the ceiling.
I know.
And I'm watching as he's trying to lift a leg up over to get to safety, and I'm going, this is not good. Now, these people, I'm sure they rehearse this stuff, but...
well, I know you and I, we're not on ladders very often.
No.
But I do know one thing.
Not more than 3 rungs up.
When my wife gets on a ladder, and it's particularly high for Christmas lights or before gutter helmet, when I had to go up there and clean out the gutters, which we don't have to do anymore, thanks to gutter helmet in Minnesota. There's always supposed to be someone kind of monitoring the ladder. Crunch goes up on this ladder straight up to drop one of the signs.
Drop the sign.
And I don't know. I know it's stable, but it seems like he's kind of on his own. It's just
he is on his own.
Crunch is up there, and it's up to him to get over and hang on.
It's a very tall ladder, and then there's an extension in the middle of the ladder that makes it go even higher.
Yes.
He's up there a long way.
Yes.
A long way.
Probably.
And that's not the rappelling thing.
No,
that's
that was
separate.
That was a new one.
That one, it's like, man, oh man, that's scary stuff. But anyway, all's well that ends well, and I hope...
so far, so good.
I just think the folks who are coming by for the game today, I know it's not the main attraction. I understand the game is what matters, but when it goes above and beyond that way,
right?
Man, let them know. Let them know you're, Otherwise, they're just sitting there, what are we doing here?
Well, we're
risking our lives for what?
The older guy, you could tell, he gets kind of bitter when he's up there on the chairs.
Yes.
Because he's trying to get people going. True. You can tell he is with you.
Yeah.
Are you guys not watching what I'm doing?
Are you with me at all?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I know the nachos are pretty good, and the David Fima grilled cheese melts in your mouth, but, give us a little something. All right, let's do this. Let's get a pause in here. As I said, at least one more guest to go. Lots more pregame to the pregame from Target Center Skyway location. Right.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Here on the Fan.
Carboni's Pizza wants to fuel your playoff party for Game 4 tonight. Visit one of their 30-plus locations to enjoy delicious pizza and get ready for the playoff run. Find your nearest Carboni's today at carbonispizza.com.
The basketball rubes are eager to get inside Target Center. I guess the gates open at 6.
They do.
Is that correct? So the line is lengthy all the way basically out towards the where you pick up the A and B, I guess C technically, parking ramps as well. As we talked about earlier, great progress finally made. Some sort of negotiating breakthrough between the Wolves, the Twins, and whoever runs the parking ramps, A, B, and C, because finally my dream has been realized. My dream that I've talked about for about 30 years, which was, historically when I go to other venues, other places, when you go to a game, you pay up front a flat fee, usually exorbitant, but that's part of the deal. And then the beauty of it is everybody can get out more easily, even on on these vertical ramps where there's a lot of floors and a lot of stories. Whereas historically here, it's been, nope, we'll pay on your way out, which of course means person pays, arm goes up, car goes through, arm comes back down, at which point then the next person has to pay. And the credit card thing can be tricky for some people, and it takes a little bit of time.
Sometimes you don't pull close enough to it.
That also
gotta
happens.
Open your door.
You open the door, and then you drop the credit card.
Gets declined.
It's declined.
It's declined. The worst one is when you are close enough to do it and drop it, but then you can't get out of the car because your door won't let you. Can't get out the door unless you weigh like 42 pounds.
Right.
And then the people behind you are bitter and honking. That problem has finally gone away. So congratulations to whoever is responsible for that negotiation breakthrough. Because I mean that's you got to be pretty agile with your negotiating skills if you broke through on something that no one else has been able to figure out in 3 decades.
And it sounds like they were at it for a while, year after year.
Yes.
And it has to do with some kind of funding, like it always does.
It always does. So it comes back to funding.
Now they have people that are there at the beginning to help you, even though I don't think you should need it on the front end, but apparently they do. And I don't even know who decides that we needed people to help on the way in, because I think most people are familiar with how to do it.
Well, did you park in the ramp today?
I did.
Okay. As I did. Now, there's a chance, like the last time this happened earlier in the playoffs, because there's nobody there this early to get your money, I got out without paying because the door was open and you just go. Right. I was willing to pay, but there was nothing that made me pay. So maybe you should stop tonight and make sure you pay. The concern is that we're losing too much money that way. But I would think on a day like this, you don't have that many cars coming in at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's been times, I guess this goes back to before this, where I would come here early, get a ticket, and my parking would be like $5.
Yes, I had that too.
The event parking hadn't kicked in. Now, did you see, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going with it. Did you see what my beloved Indianapolis is doing?
No.
In the parking by, what is it, Gamebridge Fieldhouse, whatever it is now, Bankers Life, Market Square.
Best basketball arena in the country.
We know it. Yeah. Can you believe that, by the way, they have hosted 2 basketball series, 2 basketball games, and an Indy 500 in one town in one weekend? They're actually flexing about that.
How many people could do that?
Very few.
Very few.
Very few metropolitan areas.
When's the last time we've hosted a big auto racing event?
Well, we've never had one.
Well, okay, but that Indianapolis has.
I know.
That's the point.
I know. It's amazing. I don't know. We could all learn from them. Yeah. But they had a parking ramp that said $20 for Pacer fans, $100 for Knick fans. Do you think they actually did that?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
It's a good gig. I mean, it's a good bit, I would think.
But what's the actual price?
Would it even be legal?
That's what I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it could be.
Why not, though?
Yeah.
The parking ramps are usually private.
So if you're wearing Knicks paraphernalia?
If you're wearing a Brunson jersey.
What if you do they ask you, or who are you rooting for tonight?
Well, I think if you're going to the game, usually you're marking it somehow.
I guess that's true.
I kind of like it. That's kind of funny.
You enjoy it. So you like that part?
It's kind of funny.
Kind of funny, yeah.
If it's not serious.
Yeah.
Because that would suck.
The good news is Twins are back on the road, right? After a very highly successful. I do need to correct the record. I mentioned on sermons yesterday how impressed I was that we finally hit 30,000 fans for a Twins game on Saturday. Well, in fairness, I think it was bobblehead day. So, again, free. Everybody wants something for free. I'm not saying we wouldn't have had a good crowd without it, but we've been basically in the low 20s.
Yeah.
So that they may have gotten an artificial boost a bit because we love the bobbleheads. I don't remember whose bobblehead it was either.
I don't know. I don't know.
Somebody will tell us.
It looks
but anyway,
good, though.
That may have helped.
The ballpark looked good on TV. It was full. It was a beautiful day.
That was Saturday, I think. So Sunday, I don't know, maybe Sunday was over 30 as well. But because the weather is, like you said, perfect.
Yep.
Team has a legitimate record now.
Yep, they're playing well.
I think we're tied for second.
Yeah.
And we're, I believe, 4 games out starting play tonight.
Guys were getting back from injury.
We're getting back from injury, yeah. So we might actually pay attention to the baseball team a little bit.
About 10,000 people at the X right now for the Frost Walter Cup Game 4, where they lead Ottawa 1-0 after 2. Kelly Panic with the lone goal after a mythic triple overtime victory.
I almost got in my car.
I was going to text you. Because my son
I've kind of forgotten about that bit.
My son and my dad were watching the game while we were here.
Is that right?
They
were committed. Huh?
I came to Hull with the homies a little bit early, so I was with Max. They were sitting over by Beef Jerky Guy, by Jack Link's,
right?
And I went over there, and they're still watching the game.
They're riveted.
At that point, it was the first overtime. My dad had the game running through the first half of the Wolves game.
Wow!
Because it went to.
Because they were Frost fans, huh?
Well, they were invested.
Season ticket holders?
No, they're not yet.
All right, but soon.
But maybe.
Yeah.
But once it got to the second overtime and the third overtime, I didn't know you were coming to this game. I know you were talking about it on Saturday, but I thought you might detour.
Yeah.
Even though you've got the ramp now right where you want it.
That's true.
And hopped over to St. Paul.
So we win today.
And we win the cup.
We win the cup.
Again. Back-to-back years.
Think about that.
After squeaking into the playoffs both times.
Well, we're a postseason team. That's all we care about. That's all anybody cares about. Nobody's going to care about the regular season record, are they? If you win the whole deal,
we're like playoff Jimmy.
That's what. Well, previous
right.
Play, I don't think
historically.
Playoff Jimmy this year didn't finish particularly strong.
So 1-0. Kelly Panic has the goal. 20 minutes for another Walter.
How about that?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
What kind of crowd we got today? Do we know?
Well, I think it's like 9,000-10,000.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's not bad at all.
Yeah, on a Memorial Day Monday, they do at 4:00.
Right.
I would presume they set the time because of this.
Yeah,
right. Because I know Saturday they were at 4:00 as well. So when you know what we are,
City of Winners,
the state of hockey.
State of hockey,
obviously.
Well, we could go a long way towards becoming state of basketball with a victory tonight, right? Which is, I think, a prerequisite. You're not winning this series if you go down 3-1. The beauty of what you did in Game 3 is you opened the door to the possibility of actually taking this someplace. But you have to follow it up tonight because, again, and it's an interesting question. Can you argue that the winner of this game wins the series?
Some people have said that.
Jonny hinted at that.
Yeah, I'm not going that far.
I'm not sure I am either because, again, they have 2 of the last 3 at home, and I don't think they're going to be an easy out from this point forward, even if you beat them. But we do know, for me at least, the Wolves are done if they do not win
this
tonight,
is the Wolves series again.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
For them tonight, they should be the more desperate team.
You'd like to think.
Maybe not as dramatically as for Game 3, but they should have the same level of urgency, if not more.
And unfortunately, it doesn't appear. It sounds like we got solid officials when it comes to not making every call.
Right.
But we don't have prison rules, apparently, which is what would probably be we would prefer. Where no matter what you did to Shea, you're not going to get the foul call.
You know, we talked a lot about this, and I need this on the record for the two of us.
Okay.
But here's the only fouls that really bother me in this whole thing, because I've thought a lot about it. The ones where they're only trying to get the foul. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's no attempt. They have no intention of actually trying to score. Because we see it all the time, right? Even like the rip through foul. Like,
yes.
You know, you're not.
Yes.
You know,
but
you're
that's
not
him.
But he does it. But everybody does.
Everybody does those. Yeah.
I don't like getting a foul when you had no intention on actually trying to score. The only thing you're trying to do is draw the foul.
Yeah,
those really bother me.
That's fair. Like I said, I think what's weird is historically players, even if there's been frustration about players attracting too many fouls, it's been considered a strength of a player if he can get to the free throw line and force referees to make calls. And what can't be forgotten about Shea is, I saw the analytic the other day. I wish I would have saved it. Not only does he have more drives than anybody in the game, I think he's like lapping the field several times, which is also part
It's what he does.
of what of why he is so good and why he's more likely for, here's what a lot of players are good at. Stopping on a dime. When the defensive player doesn't know when the other guy is going to stop. And then there's a chance to create a situation where the defender has no choice but to run up against him or for there to be contact. Where I think where he's sometimes too clever by half would be he's subtly good about the forearm, about creating space without. We all know if you extend the arm, you're going to get called. What he does subtly, that's I think, it needs to be watched is he'll do it so subtly that people. The ref almost doesn't believe his eyes. Right. In fact, there should be necessarily there may be too much of an advantage being gained by what he does. All right, let's make this top of the hour pause. As I said, Michael Grady should join us sometime in the 6 as the gates have now been opened.
They are
a couple minutes early because a big advanced crowd. Not to be not all that surprising. We'll continue from the Target Center Cage location in just a.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Unofficial bumper-to-bumper historian Dan Minnesota heard us chatting about the fact that, much to your chagrin, Indianapolis gets credit for doing such a whale of a job hosting a playoff game and the Indy 500.
Yeah, and a fever game.
And a fever game as well.
Yeah, in the same arena.
Which, by the way, Caitlin Clark got hurt.
Yeah, I know.
Apparently, or is now out for a couple weeks.
Get this, though, Dan. Same arena where they play the Pacer game, they also played the fever game. And they somehow
and they pulled it off.
Turned the building around fast enough. It's incredible.
So, meantime, you say, well, we haven't had an auto race. Well, he says, does Dan Minnesota, that, in fact, we once did. In 1915, the Twin Cities hosted a 500-mile auto race at the newly opened Twin City Motor Speedway near Fort Snelling.
Is that right?
Earl Cooper, somebody named Earl Cooper, won the $20,000. That's a lot of money in 1915, is it not? First prize, finishing at 5:47.29. Here's the headline. Cooper, in the Minneapolis Sunday Tribune, Cooper wins closest finish in history. There it is. Gil Anderson second in big 500-mile race. But apparently it went so well that we never had a repeat.
That was it, huh?
That was it.
500-mile race, yeah.
Think about it.
But we didn't have a St. Elmo's back then.
I wonder if Sid covered that.
Probably.
He was never really much of an auto racing guy.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
It's not really. I don't think he was much of a gearhead. Time and attendance here. This may be the clue. Under expectations.
Oh, so we didn't do it very well. Attendance.
Apparently, we didn't do it very well.
Got it.
I'm trying to see if there's an attendance listed. I'm kind of curious myself. I don't see it. Surprisingly, small crowd, disappointment. I'm trying to focus in on the copy, and that's easier said than done here. Disappointment to the management of the new track consisted in it was a surprising small crowd. It is understood that there were but 28,000 paid admissions. That's not good for an auto race at all. No wonder there was no second race.
Right.
So I guess we're not. Think about this. We're the only city in America that couldn't sell out the Beatles.
That's true.
And we apparently couldn't even come close to selling out an Indianapolis 500 style race back in 1950. What's wrong with us? What do we do? Do we think we're smarter than everybody else? Is that what it is? Or
probably
we're above it?
So Halby, who just got here, was the one that got me going on this whole thing a couple of days ago.
Right.
Because where was this story, Halby? You've done NBC News.
This isn't the first time for you. You've been
I
on
know
this for a while.
Yeah, you're right. But this is just how self-absorbed Indy is. It's just ridiculous. This is a quote from Chris Gall, G-A-H-L, Gal, whatever, Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Visit Indy, because you got to have a marketing officer.
Yes, you do.
This is an epic weekend, an incredible opportunity to put Indianapolis on the minds of virtually every major sports fan on the planet. Our initial research shows no other city in the U.S. has hosted this diverse level of major sporting events in such a short amount of time.
Name is how is the truth controversial?
First of all, the Indy 500 is just their thing. That's no big deal.
They pulled it off well.
And then 2 basketball games, that's what we're going with?
And what wasn't there fourth thing?
I don't think so.
Oh, that was it?
But even so.
It's called 500 is a world event.
But
you understand
it's
that?
called a weekend in a major city is what it's called.
I wouldn't go that far. It sounds like envy and jealousy a little bit.
Well, I just can't. It's annoying how many people just buy. Now, when you have a chief marketing officer, he's doing his job.
Why don't we have a major? We had one in this. Didn't we have one in the city, in the streets of Minneapolis a few years ago? Didn't we have an auto race? I think I was living downtown at the time. Didn't we?
No, I think you were just thinking about before Andy Luger was district attorney. And people were racing through at all out. That's what you're thinking about.
You might be right.
Yeah, it's totally different.
All right,
not a sanctioned race, but they happen to apparently every night.
Every night, yeah. I hope that's getting better. Let's break. Let's stay ahead of it. We expect Michael Grady to stop by and see us. We'll get his view of the current condition of his favorite basketball team. And maybe he talked about some Pacers stuff, too, because he's a Pacers guy.
That's true.
And that's a hell of a story.
He's from Indy.
And we'll see if he compliments. I might ask him
I'm going to leave
whether any other town could host what Indianapolis has during this Memorial Day weekend. That's next here on The Fan. From the Target Center cage location, Wolves Game 4, Oklahoma City, right here on The Fan. Pre-game to the pregame coming up, and then opening tip-off sometime probably between 7:30 and 7:40. Michael Grady is the TV voice, of course, of Minnesota Timberwolves. Kind enough to come to see us in our lovely cage location. Thank you, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you. I'm glad, because we've not talked since this series has begun. I want to take you back to what you were thinking after the first 2 games of the series, because there's the issue of not only did the Wolves lose, they weren't particularly competitive in either game. Did you see enough in either game to say they still have home games? You know, it's not like they're going on the road like New York is. Let's be patient, hang in there before we think this thing is over. Or did you have some significant concerns after games 1 and 2?
Not significant concerns. I have been and will continue to give Oklahoma City credit because record-wise and what we've seen over the course of the regular season and to a certain degree the playoffs, they're the best team remaining. That said, after the first 2 games, to answer your question, my thought was they haven't seen Minnesota's best punch yet. And the only question I had was whether or not we would see Minnesota's best punch, and that's exactly what we saw in Game 3. OKC's tough because of what they do on the defensive side of the ball. They're opportunistic. They hit you in waves. They're like vultures out there. It is incredible to watch what they do on the defensive end, and then, of course, you have the MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So if this series was to go OKC's way in the end, I wouldn't have been incredibly shocked about that. However, you want to see the guys put up a fight and then curious to see what it's going to look like. And by throwing the blow that they blew in Game 3, now you start to wonder, okay, what will the rest of this series look like, especially if we see a spirited performance tonight?
Do you buy the notion that the Wolves needed to do more than win Game 3 to really maybe put potentially Oklahoma City back on its heels a little bit? That the way they did it, again, it only counts for one, but the way they did it does open the door on both sides to the possibilities of, they can not only get back in this series, the Wolves can win this series.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing, and I may go on a mini tangent. I know you don't have a lot of time.
No,
I think a lot of people get they like the super team even though they don't want to admit it. Mm-hmm. And I think with the super team, there's comfort in knowing what you're going to get pretty much night in and night out. You may root for the underdog, but if LeBron wins, let's say LeBron in his prime with some of the teams he played with, okay, that's
right,
LeBron.
Right,
or if Steph Curry does, that's Steph Curry. I expect that. I want to see greatness, and people respond and love seeing greatness, and they love seeing these great teams. And right now, we're seeing a lot of negativity about this Final Four, but to me, this is the beauty of sports. The fascinating thing about it is none of these teams know what it's like to get to this next level, to punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. The Knicks haven't done it in decades. The Pacers haven't done it since 2000. OKC hasn't done it since KD, Russell Westbrook, and those guys. And, of course, the Minnesota Timberwolves are looking to punch their ticket, and Anthony Edwards and some of these guys looking to do something that they've never done before. So in that, Pacers should have won last night. They should have won last night. But there's something about the nerves and the expectation of the moment that gets to you, and you give New York a lot of credit for coming back. And you know what? That series is not over. And the same thing with Minnesota. OKC, as great as they've been all season long, Shea has never been to an NBA Finals. Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, these guys, to take that next step, it's going to take an immense amount of intestinal fortitude, mental toughness to do that. And that's tough to navigate in this environment in Target Center. When you have a player like Anthony Edwards who's playing out of his mind, and the role players and other guys around them who are stepping up as we saw them do in Game 3. So they're giving themselves hope. I think from OKC's standpoint, this is a desperation game tonight. In the end, they have the comfort of playing at home because that's an incredible place to play. They have home court advantage. They haven't lost at home yet. But this is an important game for their psyche, for their growth as a squad, and Minnesota wants to squash that.
For you, did it start? I mean, obviously, to dominate to the degree the Wolves did in Game 3, it has to be a combination of things that puts you in that place. But does it start for you offense or defense in terms of what set the tone from your perspective in Game 3?
To me, it was energy and physicality, and it showed up on both ends of the floor. And so there was attention to detail out there. They were certainly sharp on the offensive end, which helped, and that fuels energy on the defensive side of the ball. But I want to give Julius Randle a lot of credit. Didn't have a great Game 2. And after OKC got out to that 4-0 start, and we saw Julius go out there and hit a couple of tough buckets, and then it was Ant with the energy play off the rebound, hustling, saving it on the sidelines, and getting the big dunk, and it was an avalanche, really, from there. And so I felt like the energy and the physicality was there, and it was, this is the team that we've been seeing over the course of the regular season and for most of these playoffs, and OKC just was not ready for that. And again, I have to give the crowd a ton of credit because it was a madhouse.
It's interesting because before the game, I was talking to a couple people about the crowd, and the feeling I got back from a couple people was they're apprehensive. They're almost like it's going to be one of those crowds that's almost waiting for something bad to happen. Now, as it turns out, other than 4-0, nothing bad happened. But I felt the crowd was terrific almost from start to finish. Now, again, given how well, 25-5 run, it's hard to not get excited about that. But I thought, like you said, the crowd was, in fact, one of the dunks, after one of the Edwards steals and dunks, I think it was about as loud as I ever remember it being in that building.
100%. And Jada McDaniels said, I believe earlier today, that he got chills. It's a player talking about he got chills on a play during the game. I don't remember where I heard this. It may have been a cartoon. It may have been a philosopher. Fear fuels my greatest work. And I think that nervous, anxious energy that the crowd had, they unleashed it. Over the course of the game. And I think the players themselves, the way they competed, it was the perfect chemistry, because I've seen so many times, I'll use the Pistons as an example, made it to the playoffs for the first time in forever. And you almost feel like the crowd is going to carry us. We have nerves. Right. We're a little anxious, but the crowd is going to carry us. Well, you have to give the crowd something to cheer about. You have to give the crowd something to get excited about. And I thought we had the perfect chemistry of the players playing out of their mind with the energy from the crowd, and it was just a perfect storm.
You mentioned Randall. To me, it's always a fascinating subplot when you have a main player who's been playing great in the postseason, especially, who does not play in the fourth quarter of Game 2. And, this becomes, especially in the NBA, it's a point of intrigue where everybody's weighing in, including Charles Barkley. You can't do that. You're going to lose the player. Bad move. Obviously, it worked out very well, at least for this last game. But you know Randall pretty well. I thought he handled it. There was even an admission, I think, for him is, okay, there's two ways for me to go here. As a prideful guy, I can say I deserve better than this. And he may even be thinking that. But ultimately, I think he got to a place where he said, that ain't going to serve my purpose. It's not going to serve the team's purpose, which I do think is part of the maturation of a good player. What do you think?
100%. And I could be wrong in this. I think I'll just say the opinion is that early season Randall may have handled this a little bit differently. The Randall that we've seen, the transformation following his injury and coming back and understanding what the team needed to be successful, and whatever that is, I'm going to fit into that. That Randall is the guy that we saw respond and play the way that he did in Game 3 after the performance he had in Game 2. And to your point, when you have regular season struggles, they're not talking about you on First Take on ESPN as a Minnesota Timberwolves player, right? They're not talking about you on the other shows, TNT or whatever it may be. But when you're in the Final Four, everybody is talking about you. So now you have that on top of it. It's not one of those things, that tree falls in the forest that anybody sees. Everybody is talking about it, and so he has to navigate that as well. And so you credit his relationship with the coaching staff. Anthony Edwards played a role in it as well in terms of getting his mind back right. And he did what you're supposed to do. You let your game do the talking.
What does your gut tell you tonight?
I don't want to jinx anything, Dan. I think we're going to see Oklahoma City come out with the idea of making a statement. They were shell-shocked. They were embarrassed. They didn't look like a championship caliber team the other night, and I expect them to come out there and throw some hellacious punches in Game 4 tonight. For Minnesota, how do they respond to that? Down 0-2, everybody wrote you off, and, okay, start making plans for the offseason. And then you smack OKC in Game 3. You're right there. You're a win away from this truly being a series, or a loss away from, okay, this might be a wrap. And so what kind of desperation, what kind of energy will we see from Minnesota tonight, knowing that you're going to see a completely different Oklahoma City team? I can't wait to see what it looks like. I expect Ant to play at a high level. I think Julius will play well again. And if the other guys are also clicking, and if they take care of that damn basketball, then we're going to see, my friends Mike Breen and Doris Burke and Rich, they are desperate for a game, ball, right? For a game. Yes. I think tonight is the night they get a game.
Lastly, is there any other city in America that does a better job at hosting big events than Indianapolis, Indiana?
No, Indianapolis is just tremendous. Tremendous at hosting events. 500,000 people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. today, and
nobody gets hurt. No problems, right?
No. Yeah, it's just amazing what they do in Indianapolis. Inside joke.
Yeah, very, very well. Actually, the whole audience probably knows because they've heard Guardsy.
Okay.
He can't help himself. Thanks for coming to see us. Enjoy the basketball tonight, and I hope we can talk during the finals, man. I hope this thing carries forward. It would be a lot of fun,
a real opportunity.
And of course, unprecedented here.
No question.
Thanks,
no
man.
question.
Appreciate you. Michael Grady, kind enough to join us, the TV voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves. We got to go a little long today. I hope you're not bitter about that, young man. You can get on the mic real quick.
Never bitter.
I mean,
never bitter.
Just an extra minute.
I had it worked out with my agent. I added a couple extra zeros on the paycheck, so it's all good.
So you got pregame to the pregame, and then you'll be here after the game as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Covering the whole damn thing.
Live and local all night,
wrapped inside a blanket, wrapped inside a quilt.
It's outstanding. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Mr. Grady, thanks again. We appreciate all the guests that we had today, including Sedano, who stopped by today, Jonny Athletic, who stopped by today. We'll be back at headquarters to review Game 4 tomorrow afternoon beginning at 3 o'clock. Enjoy the basketball all night right here on the flagship FM 100.3 The Fan.